Chapter 46 The Fight. Hello, bears. My name is Roz. Oh, we know who you are, said the sister bear, her voice stripped with sarcasm. We're very happy to see you again. Yeah, we're very happy to see you again, echoed the brother bear. Why do you always have to repeat what I said the sister bear to her brother. It's so annoying. I was just backing you up. Let me do the talking. Fine. You don't have to be so mean about it. The bickering bears were interrupted by the robot's friendliest voice. With whom do I have the pleasure of speaking? How rude of us, said the sister bear. My name is Nettle, and this is my little brother, Thorn. I'm not little, snapped Thorn under his breath. It is lovely to meet you both, said Roz, but I'm afraid I really must be going. And I'm afraid we can't let you do that. Nettle stepped into Roz's path. My brother and I, we don't like monsters. I'm not a monster. I'm a robot. Whatever you are, we don't like you, said Thorn. We hear you've become very comfortable on our island, said Nettle. We're going to have to make you very uncomfortable. Yeah, we're going to make you very uncomfortable. Stop repeating me, Thorn. Poor Roz was in serious trouble. The bears were closing in on her, but she couldn't run, she couldn't hide, and she couldn't fight. The robot didn't know what to do, but before she could say anything, there was a loud squawk and a streak of feathers. Stay away from my mama! Brightbill swooped down and skidded to a stop between the robot and the bears. So the rumors are true, Nettle laughed. There really is a runty gosling who thinks the robot is his mother. How could anyone be so stupid? Do yourself a favor, Gosling, and fly away before you get hurt. She's right, Brightbill, said Roz. Please let me handle this. But the gosling stood his ground. He spread his wings and hopped around, ready to defend his mother. The bears roared with laughter. Then, with a flick of her paw, Nettle sent Brightbill tumbling over the ground, over and over until he flopped onto his back and stared up at the sky, stunned. This is our island, snarled Nettle, and it's time for you to go, growled Thorn. Roz made herself as big as possible. She banged her chest and roared wild, angry sounds, but the bears were not intimidated. They roared right back, and then they attacked. Nettle pulled Roz into a fierce bear hug while Thorn clawed at her legs. The robot tried to shake free, but the bears wouldn't let go of their prey. Not this time. A cloud of dust boomed around the trio as they thrashed closer to the edge of the cliff. All of a sudden, something burst from the trees and onto the open cliff top. Mother Bear. She was gigantic, like a mountain of golden fur, and she was furious. It seemed like this would be the end for our robot. But Mother Bear wasn't there to join the fight. She was there to break it up. Nettle, Thorn, get over here this instant. The young bears should have listened to their mother. Instead, they pretended not to hear her. Nettle slashed at Roz's body, and Thorn began wrestling with her foot. He grabbed the foot and with both paws and forced it up from the ground. Then, with every ounce of his strength, he twisted the foot around. Reader, the following events happened very quickly. First, there was a strange thwip sound. The robot's right foot popped off her leg and sailed through the air. Then everyone toppled over. Netzel and Roz fell sideways along the edge, but Thorn fell backward and tumbled right off the cliff. Do you know what the most terrible sound in the world is? It's the howl of a mother bear as she watches her cub tumble off a cliff. Mother Bear howled was so startling that it snapped Brightbill right off its stupor. Her howl was so powerful that it shook Roz's entire body. Her howl was so loud the animals heard it clear across the island, but there was no reply from Thorn. Mother Bear's howl slowly faded, and she wilted to the ground. Roz watched as her detached foot sailed over the edge and plummeted down to the shore below. It fell past circling seagulls, smashed off a rock, and disappeared into the waves. And that's when the robot noticed something furry dangling from the cliffside. Thorn! His full weight hung from a tree that was rooted to the rock wall. He gripped the tree tightly in his jaws and looked up at Roz with wide, frightened eyes. I see Thorn, shouted Roz. Grab my legs, quickly. Mother Bear and Nestle scrambled to their feet. Each bear took a leg in her mouth, and together they slowly lowered Roz headfirst down the cliff. Thorn whimpered through clenching teeth as he watched the robot approach. Then he felt her strong arms wrap around him and heard her booming holler, "Pull us up!" Thorn let go of the branch and cried, "Please don't drop me, Roz. I don't want to die." "Do not worry," said the robot. "I will not drop you." The next few moments seemed to drag on and on. Mother Bear and Nestle kept pulling on Roz's leg, and more of the robot slowly came to view until a furry golden head finally appeared, and Thorn leaped onto the embrace of his family. Chapter 47. The Parade. "Does it hurt?" Bright Bill touched the smooth surface where his mother's foot used to be. "No, it does not hurt," said Roz, "but it will be difficult for me to walk." The bears huddled behind the gosling and stared at the robot stump of a leg. Nobody understood how a foot could pop off like that, or how Roz could remain calm. "Roz, I'm sorry my cubs attacked you," said Mother Bear. "Sometimes they're completely out of control." "It is okay. You know how they are at this age. I can't thank you enough for saving Thorn. I promise my cubs will never bother you again. Isn't that right?" "Yes, Mother," said Nestle and Thorn together. The robot tried to walk. She bobbled up and down on her uneven legs, which worked well enough on the flat surface of the cliff top, but once she entered the forest, her problem became clear. The smooth stump had no grip, and it slipped around the forest floor, so Roz tried hopping on her one good foot. She took a few crunching hops and then clinged onto a tree trunk. A few more hops, and she crashed into the undergrowth. "I'm really sorry I broke your foot off," said Thorn as he helped the robot up from the weeds. "I forgive you," said Roz. Whether she was capable of true forgiveness is anybody's guess, but they were nice words, and Thorn felt better when he heard them. "It looks like I will have to crawl home," said Roz. "Nonsense," said Mother Bear. "I have an idea." Mother Bear lied flat on the ground while her cubs boosted Roz onto her back. Then Bright Bill fluttered onto the bear's broad shoulders, and when they were both safely aboard, the group set off through the forest. The robot was heavy, but she was no trouble for the giant animal. Mother Bear strolled along as if it were perfectly normal for the robot to be riding on her back. They made quite a grand procession, all walking together like that, and the procession became even grander as deer and raccoons and birds and all kinds of other animals joined in. Everyone wanted to see the mother robot riding the bear. The group wound its way past ancient trees, over rolling meadows, and through babbling streams, collecting more and more curious animals as they went. It was all the grandest parade of wildlife anyone had ever seen, and leading the way was our robot, Roz. But the parade couldn't last forever. As the sun went down, the other animals began drifting away one by one, and when the parade finally arrived at the nest, only the original animals remained. "Here we are," said Mother Bear, helping Roz down into the garden. "Now, wasn't that better than crawling all the way home?" "Oh, yes, that was wonderful," said the robot. "I cannot imagine a better ending to this day. Thank you very much." "Yeah, that was amazing," squeaked the gosling. "My friends won't believe me when I told them I rode a bear across the island. Rode across the island on the back of a bear." "I'm glad you enjoyed yourselves," Mother Bear smiled. "It's the least I could do after all the trouble these two caused." Her smile began to frown, and she glared at her cubs, who suddenly took great interest in pebbles on the ground. It was late, and it had been a long, difficult day for everyone, so the bears said goodbye and headed back to their cave. Bright Bill and Roz stood in the garden and watched their new friends lumber away. And then Gosling said, "Mama, do you think you'll ever walk again?" "I'm not sure," said the robot, "but I know who to ask for help. Now go get ready for bed." Chapter 48. The New Foot. Mr. Beaver squinted at Roz's stump. "I've never built a foot before." He stroked his whiskers and muttered to himself, There are really three problems to solve. The foot needs to grip the ground, it needs to be durable, and there's an issue to fixing the leg. I might have to consult a few friends." "Will she ever walk again?" said Bright Bill. "What's that?" Mr. Beaver was lost in thought. "Oh, not to worry. You just sit back and leave everything to me. I love a challenge." Mr. Beaver plunked into the pond and returned a while later, rolling a large section of a tree trunk. "Say hello to your new foot," he said, slapping the wood with his tail. "Hello, new foot," said the robot. "That's the spirit. The beauty is from one of the hardest trees I've ever chewed. I just need to make a few modifications." Mr. Beaver placed the piece of wood next to Roz. He squinted, repositioned the piece, and squinted some more. With his claws, he marked different spots on the wood, and then he put his big chompers to work. The beaver chewed and gnawed and carved up that piece of wood, turning it over and over in his paws. Chit-Chat looked down from the branch and chattered through the quiet moments. This reminds me of how the time I saw a fox catch a lizard by the tail, and somehow the lizard's tail fell off, and he got away. And later I saw a lizard got a new tail, and now Roz is going to get a new foot, and everything will be fine. The wooden foot took shape, and before long Mr. Beaver was standing beside a beautiful carving that resembled a boot. He tried to slide it over Roz's stump, but the opening was too small, so he scraped out more wood until it was fit perfect. Very good, he said, spitting out the wood chips. My friend should be arriving any minute with the next few things we'll need. And there they are now. I'd like you to all meet Bumpkin, Lumpkin, and Rumpkin, but I call them the Fuzzy Bandits. The 3 fat raccoons scuffled into the garden, dragging a tangle of vines behind them. Good day, said Bumpkin. Good day, said Lumpkin. Good day, said Rumpkin. You might already know this, reader, but raccoons have very nimble hands, and their fuzzy bandits use their skillfully ties those vines around the robot's legs around her new foot. The vines caught nicely on all the dings and dents and scrapes. Once they were tied good and tight, Mr. Beaver threw back his head and hollered, Trunk Tap, we could use your assistance. There was silence, and then 3 quick taps echoed from down the forest canopy. Ah, that'll be him, said Mr. Beaver, smiling. A very handsome woodpecker scooped into the garden. You called? Came the woodpecker's musical voice. Indeed I did. Everyone, this is Woodpecking Paul, Trunk Tap. Now, Chunky, we need some tree resin, the really sticky stuff. Can you help us out? Of course I can, said the woodpecker. You've got a perfect pine right here. Trunk Tap hopped over to a crusty old pine tree and pecked a few deep holes into the bark. Thick, sappy resin began oozing down the trunk. Mr. Beaver scooped up a handful of the resin and smeared it all over the wooden foot and the vines until everything was glistening with stickiness. And when the resin dried, a short time later, Roz's foot was finished. This is wonderful, said the robot as she strolled around her garden. I am as good as new. Mr. Beaver and Trunk Tap and the Fuzzy Bandits went away feeling pretty happy about themselves. They've done a very nice thing, but it was the first wooden foot any of them had ever made. And within a week the vines were coming undone and the foot was sliding loose. So they returned, determined to get it right. They found even harder wood and even tougher vines. They experimented with resin, heating it by fire, letting it boil and thicken until it became an indestructible glue. They kept tinkering with their design until finally Roz had herself a wooden foot that she could rely on. Howza! Mr. Beaver rapped his knuckles on the new and improved creation. I knew we'd get it right. Roz moved slower than before, but she had a slight limp, but she was back to her old self again, and that was a relief to everyone, especially Bright Bill. Chapter 49, The Flyer. With coaching from his mother, Bright Bill was becoming a truly exceptional flyer. He wasn't the biggest or the strongest, but he was the smartest. You see, he and his mother had started studying the flying techniques of their other birds. They'd sit for hours and watch how hawks and owls and sparrows and vultures moved through the air. Then they'd go up to the grassy ridge and Bright Bill would practice what he'd learned. Soon he was diving and swooping and darting and soaring around the island. The adult geese frowned at his flying tricks, but the goslings thought he was amazing. Each morning, a gaggle of them would wait on the water for Bright Bill to lead them into the sky, and then a few hours later he'd return home to Roz, shaking his tail feathers and honking about his latest airborne adventures. Mama, the other goslings didn't know that warm air rises, so I found an updrift and spent the afternoon circling around and hardly flapping our wings at all. Mama, did you see that lightning storm today? We knew there was trouble when the wind started blowing from the north, so we flew down to some shrubs and waited for the storm to pass. Mama, we just tried to fly in formation. We all took turns at the point, but everyone liked following me the best, so I led most of the time. Chapter 50. The Button. Brightbill was thinking about the small button on the back of his mother's head. His mother was thinking about it too. They couldn't stop wondering what would happen if the button were pressed, and one day they decided it was time to find out. Ra sat on the floor of the nest. Her son nervously stood on a stone behind her. "I'm ready when you are," said the robot. "Okay," said the gosling. "Here we go." Brightbill took a deep breath. Click. Roz's body relaxed. Her quiet whirling slowly stopped. Her eyes faded black. "Mama, can you hear me?" There was no answer. Brightbill waddled around and looked at her mother's face. Her strange spark of life had gone out. The gosling had never felt more alone. He was ready to switch her back on. But what if she didn't wake up? What if she woke up differently? The gosling was afraid to press the button, and he was afraid to not press the button. Brightbill took a deep breath. Click. Roz's body's tense. Her quiet whirling slowly started. Her eyes began to glow. "Mama, can you hear me?" "Hello, I am Rozum, Unit 7134, but you may call me Roz." The robot spoke those words automatically in the language Brightbill didn't understand. His little heart raced as his worst fears seemed to be coming true. But a moment later, her familiar voice returned, and the robot said in a language of the animals, "Hello, son. How long was I out? It seemed like only an instant to me." "You were out for a few minutes," said the gosling as he hugged his mother, "but it seemed like forever to me."